Welcome to the Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, Bengals all-time leading scorer and 2 Super Bowl appearances, Jim Breech.
I'm gonna sit right down and write myself a letter. Boom, 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 boom. And make believe it came from not you.
Go into a soft shoe.
I'm going to write words also sweet.
I've been dated this entry or what?
Do you think as a black singer, do you think he got his original money from that, Derek? What do you think?
Yeah, he definitely did not. He probably didn't get any money, like zero.
It was written by white songwriters, performed by a black guy.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, well, Fats
great
Waller, I
song,
always remember Fats Waller when your feet's too big. You know, that was the one I always remember with Fats Waller. But what is that, 30s, 40s?
I don't know. Billy Williams sang what?
Yeah, he did sing.
Billy Williams sang it. Yeah. Willie Nelson sang it. Frank Sinatra sang it.
It's crazy. Like a lot of people. Paul McCartney sang
Paul McCartney sang it.
Wow.
Bing Crosby.
You know, it's funny. I was just thinking about this the other day. Yeah. By the way, it's Super Bowl Sunday, so we're going to have a great show. We got Jim Breech on.
Oh, wow.
Are you surprised?
I'm surprised that you were able to land him there. It's not Jesus. I mean, I remember the last time you said Jesus Christ was going to be on it. I was really looking forward to that one. But
Jim's going to be great. We got a whole batch of questions for him, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. All-time leading scorer for the Bengals, huh?
Yeah. Played in 2 Super Bowls. He'll be a great guest.
By the way, Billy, I just want to say you were quite nimble last week with that same question.
I was nimble with what question was that?
Jesus Christ, what question do you think it is? We just talked about it 30 seconds ago.
I don't know. I got Jesus who? What did you say his last name was?
Christ. Jesus Cristo.
Jesus Cristo. Yeah. What the Italians, that's what they call it when the Italians on the street, when they get mad at the Jews, they call them Morte Christi, Christ killers. Morte Christi.
Oh,
that's what they do. They call it. I'm just repeating.
Yeah, that's right. You can repeat it. That's true.
That's true.
Hey, Billy, before we go to Jim Breech, we wrote a book called Lamar's Gamble. It seems appropriate that you can maybe read a passage in it right now. I'll continue to stall until you open it up and find the fucking page you're going to read.
Well, let me tell you something. Actually, you know what? It's really tough to find a spot that I want to read because
really
every single page is very interesting.
Yeah.
And it's quick. And it's like, this book, when we wrote this book, I mean, it's a story about Lamar Hunt starting the new league, right. The AFL. Right. And, of course, the NFL was the established league. Right. And it's about the 60s. It's about the tremendous times that it wouldn't have been able to happen had it not been for the tumultuous times of the 60s.
And Lamar Gamble is Lamar Hunt is the protagonist, and the NFL owners are the antagonists. And I finally learned the difference between protagonist and antagonist.
Carol Rosenblum would be the antagonist.
Carol Rosenblum would be the
guy who was trying to stop him at every turn. And Lamar probably wouldn't have made it had it not been for the fact that H.L. Hunt, his father, was the richest man in the world.
Well, Lamar would have made it. Would have made it sooner there would be no AFL if the owners of the Chicago Cardinals had accepted him as the owner, but they turned him down.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him into the league. They wanted to blackball him from the league, and so he decided to start his own. But I tell you what, the thing that Lamar's Gamble is very illuminating,
and it's available. It's available on Amazon.com.
Amazon.com and Acclaim, I guess.
And actually mickamookanamike.com.
Yes, you can pick it up there. And but I tell you, the book itself, it sheds a lot of light on the NFL tries to project this squeaky clean image all the time. Well, they used to anyway. I remember when Rozelle was commissioner, they wouldn't even talk about gambling. They'd ask about the lines. We don't know anything about the lines or anything. But meanwhile, they would give it injury reports and everything, which is what gamblers look for, injury reports, field reports. But Rozelle was hired by the owners to police the owners and the league. And you're not really going to do too much policing of your boss.
No.
So
to report to the owners.
Exactly.
and do the owner's bidding.
Exactly. A PR man is what he was.
Yeah.
That's what Rozelle was. And a great commissioner for football. I mean, he took it into the 21st century for sure with a rush after Bert Bell had died. But we had Upton on the show, Upton Bell.
Upton Bell, yep.
And that's Bert Bell's son. He said he was there for everything that happened throughout the book we reported. And 95% of this book is
the
public.
other 5% is, imagined conversation between Lamar and his wife. But
exactly. Carol and Georgia Frontieri.
Well, she wasn't Georgia Frontieri then. She was Georgia Rosenblum.
Georgia Rosenblum. Yeah. Well, she was when you first met her. She was.
She wasn't Georgia Frontieri.
No, she was just Georgia.
Georgia, like the state.
Like the state.
All right, read.
All right. So after the Knapp Commission happened, the Kennedy investigation, and the average citizen felt our institutions were falling apart. Football wasn't any different. Pete Rozelle had gathered information about a possible betting scandal involving two of the NFL's brightest stars, Alex Karras and Paul Hornung. He told the league owners about it, and they discussed their dilemma. What do you got on these two sons of bitches, Pete? Carol Rosenblum asked. How much did they bet and how often? Hornung bet up to $500 at least a half a dozen times, and Karras bet even less, somewhere between $50 and $100. Insignificant amounts, really. But if the public perceives our product as impure, the consequences could be dire and insurmountable. The fans can't think that the players could actually benefit from not trying their best. Pete's right, Art Rooney said. We can't have a watered-down product. Fans must know that every lad is trying his best at all times. If the public knew that we bet, that would be bad enough, Art Modell said. But if they think we permitted the players to gamble, we're dead. Come down hard on them, Pete. Address it now with authority. The scandal could spread like a virus.
Yeah.
Now, we have many, many links and it's an exploding book. Be careful if you buy this book. We have many, many links to how the mob was involved with the early pioneers of football. And
I'm smiling because that was a great passage.
Yeah.
That was a great passage.
That's a good one.
It didn't have anything to do with what I asked you to read. I asked you to read a segment.
I'm more interested in the gamble
segment about Lamar and how he built the league. But there's plenty of that in the
Lamar's gamble. I'm more interested in the gambling aspect of this. I just there's so many incidences, like a lot of Scorsese's movies, like Casino. People he depicted in there, we have linked up with the NFL. I mean, Rosenblum.
What about Lamar?
Well, Lamar's tenacious approach. He was relentless. He would refuse to get stopped. He was determined to come out from underneath his father's shadow, who was the richest man in the world, and make a name for himself. And he certainly did. Because I'm sure more people remember Lamar Hunt now than remember H.L.
Oh, for sure.
He was the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, the whole beginning of the AFC. And how many people know why the Kansas City Chiefs are called the Kansas City Chiefs?
I don't. And I wrote the book.
And you wrote the book. Well, he got such a sweetheart deal when he had to leave Dallas to move to Kansas City because he couldn't compete in Dallas because the NFL threw their team in there, the Dallas Cowboys, 2 years before they were supposed to.
Yeah.
And he couldn't establish himself in Dallas, which is what his whole dream was, to bring in the NFL to Texas.
Yep.
He ended up going to Kansas City, and the mayor of Kansas City was named Chief. So he gave him a sweetheart deal, and he called it. But there's so many incidents like that. Why do you call the Jets the Jets? How they football players started putting numbers on their back, and why, and the names on their back. That wasn't happening before the AFL.
Names with the AFL for sure. Numbers were already on their backs.
Yeah, but the names, the marquee names, to try and build some credibility for the league.
And we go into the rating of the leagues, which Upton was a babysitter when the AFL started shepherding away college players.
Right.
Then the NFL started hiding them away so they couldn't find them on draft day.
And the AFL being the first ones to open up the black colleges, to get the black players in there, realizing that they got some great players down here in Grambling. They got some great players down here. And I think Washington was the last team to integrate.
I wonder why. President Marshall,
noted
racist.
But so I mean, it's a fascinating book, and not just because we wrote it. It's a fascinating book because it's not only about football. It's about corruption. It's about how money corrupts, and it's about the '60s. It's about people that were larger than life.
Yeah,
name it. And now Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell and
John F. Kennedy.
Kennedy.
The whole Kennedy family.
Yeah, and Martin Luther King.
Malcolm X. It's a great book. And maybe it's been optioned for a movie. So we'll see.
Well, that'd be lovely. I mean, we'll see what happens. But I can tell you one thing.
The only thing we got against us is you.
How many times?
The Black Cloud. The Black Cloud.
Oh, yeah. I'm your boy. I buy a boat. We got more rain in California than we have 30 years. 30 years. It rained for 30 straight nights and days. And I'm on an old boat. I found out where every leak on that boat was and had my wife fix it. I think we got another leak over there, honey.
One guy who's not under a black cloud was Jim Breech. Derek, do you want to bring on Jim?
Yeah, one thing before Jim Breech. Did you guys see that the NFL was trending as being scripted?
Oh, I read something about that.
Did you see the clip?
Yes, I did.
It's a pretty funny clip, actually.
Especially,
I sent it to you. That's right, yeah.
I think it's amazing that he talked about his injuries being scripted. That was like, that was incredible to me. I never even thought of that aspect of it.
Let me tell you, he's full of shit.
That was kind of weird.
I mean, anybody can take a thing after the fact and write a script that works with the photos. So, who was it? Who was that?
I think his name was Arian Foster.
Arian Foster.
Who wrote the book, They Call It a Game, Derek? Real quick. He played linebacker at UF and ended up playing for later on for Cleveland. And he had said, and we quote him in the book, and his name escapes me at the minute, but
Bernie Parrish.
Bernie Parrish. Yeah. And Bernie Parrish said that he played in at least 3 games that he knew were fixed.
Yeah.
And one of them, and he said he wouldn't be surprised if a Super Bowl was fixed.
Yeah, I would.
One particular Super Bowl.
One particular. I wouldn't be surprised if that particular Super Bowl was fixed. And we went into that in Lamar's Gamble, but actually 2 of them. One of them.
One of them fixed it, but one of them
one of them was.
Anyway, let's get to Jim.
Let's get to Jim Breech.
What the hell are we talking about? We haven't done nothing. You have. I haven't.
All-time leading scorer for the Cincinnati Bengals and appeared in 2 Super Bowls.
You're looking good. Looking handsome today, Billy.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, you're not your usual disheveled self.
You know what it was? I took more time with my makeup this morning.
Jim Breech coming up.
Is he? No. Oh. So now we got
that was convincing. Did you see that? He was convinced.
I was convinced.
You threw him a zig, and then you zagged.
There he is, Mr. Jim Breech. How are you, Jim?
Good, Frank. How are you?
Good. That's my partner, Billy O'Connor.
How are you doing, Jim? Nice to meet you,
That's
pal.
my other partner, Derek Harris.
Hello.
Derek, how are you? Derek, you have an unusual spelling of your name.
Yes, we're creative in the South.
Yeah, I bet you couldn't find any license plates for your bike, could you?
That's true. It was a sad moment as a kid, for sure.
Well, it's Super Bowl Sunday, Jim. How about that? Sorry about the Bengals. Sorry about the Bengals.
That's the first.
Yeah, it's hard to watch the run-up stuff now because they're not involved, and you get that close. And we played in 3 of them, and we've never lost an AFC Championship game, so didn't know how to act that week before, and we're not acting very well. I'm not really enjoying it.
It's the first question I got to ask when you get a late hit, when you see it. The whole season come to an end like that. Is there finger pointing after that? Or did you go down as a team? Or even if you was a kicker, if you missed a field goal and lost the game, would there be like, that son of a bitch,
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. You go down as a team. However, there was some finger pointing. Certainly the fans, if you read anything that the fans had to say from cutting him to, the guy played a great game. And I've had guys finger point at me when I've missed a kick, and I know that feeling. But overall, I think with a day to think about it, even the guys that pointed their fingers or say, hey, we're a team. He played a great game. And, nobody's out there to do that purposely. And if you hear his assessment, he was trying to get to Mahomes and they have that rule now. If you get hit and going backwards, then the clock doesn't stop, right? So that was his goal, to try and get him to go backwards, going out of bounds versus going forward. And he was late getting there. It's kind of interesting. There's a play on Mixon that has been shown several times here where he's well out of bounds and he gets drilled by another player and he doesn't get called. So, the whole conspiracy theory, there's always stuff that happens. That one was just huge at that moment in the game, and it stands out more than any others.
Yeah, Billy and I wrote a book called Lamar's Gamble, A Tale of the AFL-NFL Merger. And conspiracy theories, in there we talked about how any ref can change any play whenever he wants to. He can call something, he can not call something. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory this week, but that was a questionable call in my account, because looking at the Mixon tape, which I've seen, Mixon was far more egregious hit on Mixon than the hit on Mahomes.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to the person making the call. Two, these guys are the highest rated at their positions, and yet everybody knew them, and you didn't want to be known. When you're a referee, you don't want anybody to know who you are. Just referee the game, and you're in the background, and let the game take care of itself. And unfortunately, they became at the forefront, particularly after the botched play on 3rd and 9, which to stop it was actually the right thing, because they started the clock when it was supposed to be a dead ball after an incomplete pass. However, nobody could hear that, and they ended up punting, so it didn't impact that, except that there was time off the clock. It's just, you hate it when the referees are, it's hard enough to play anyway, but when the referees seem to play a major role, and it's never good.
So, Jim, you played 14 seasons. You're the all-time Bengals leading scorer. You scored in 186 different games, consecutive games. Let me ask you, one thing that always interests me about field goal kickers is whenever you guys kick, there's a referee under one's upright and a referee under the other one. The referees invariably look at each other to ask what's the call, and then they both raise their arms at the same time. Can you comment on that?
I always wonder the same thing. Did he make that decision? I mean, it's not that. It's only 18 feet away. I mean, he can tell if the ball goes inside the post or not. Now, if it goes close to the top and the guy looking straight up, I get that. But if I can look at it and I can see it's inside, why do I have to look for confirmation? But they do. That's obviously part of their whole teamwork thing. And but yeah, I've kind of wondered the same thing, Frank. I never asked him why, but it's always been a curiosity.
Were you in the league when they extended the goalposts up, or did that happen before you came into the league?
The posts originally were before I got there. Just before I got there, they extended them, and then they've extended them again since then.
What's the height?
Because these guys just kick the ball so high.
What's the height of the posts? Do you know?
30 feet, 35 feet. I mean, wow.
That's pretty far.
It can be impacted by the wind. That's for sure. They get blown around a little bit.
Jim, when you go out there as all-time leading scorer for the Bengals as a kicker, are you thinking, when you look at it, are you thinking more about distance, direction, or is it just muscle memory? Is it just, this is what I've done 1,000 times before, and get all the bullshit, get the trees out of the picture so I can see the forest? What's
the latter. It's
muscle memory.
You cannot go out there thinking anything except that what you've prepared for. When I was in college, I played at Cal, and I was a freshman kicking in my 3rd game. I won the LA Coliseum playing SC, and they're number 1 in the country. And I've got a 34-yard field goal with 11 seconds to go, and I pulled it left. And I'm doing this whole evaluation while a couple of the seniors want to just pound me, and they want to beat me to a pulp because they never beat me. It would be in a tie game. We did tie them, but we didn't win. And looking back, I'm sitting there thinking, I really wasn't nervous. I wasn't so much nervous, but I did spend a lot of time worrying about what everybody was going to think, what my teammates were going to think, the coaches, TV, radio, all this stuff was running around in my head. If I make it, if I miss it, it wasn't like I'm going to be a hero. It's more like, what are people going to think? And it took me a little while to figure out that I had no control over that. I only had control over the kick itself. And after I figured that part out and I can't control the stuff around me, so I'm not going to worry about it. Then I got really good at those types of kicks. But it took some failure first.
How long did it take you to get over that? And how did you get over that?
I've always bounced back from things like that pretty well. The next week we played Washington. I remember I had a 37-yarder right off the bat and made that. And then later on playing Stanford in the big game, I had a 40-yarder with like 4 minutes to go that put us within a touchdown and an extra point to put us ahead with like 30 seconds to go. And they ended up going down, kicking a 50-yard field goal to beat us. So I had opportunities to kind of wrap my head around it a little bit. And, when I was a freshman, I was a quarterback in high school, so I had literally never just stood on the sidelines for an entire game. So I really had no idea what to do with myself. We didn't have a net. I didn't have a net till my second year in the pros. So I didn't have a net. All I could do is stretch and just kind of get in my head. And that's never a good thing when you're doing that for 3 hours. So it took a while. It took a while to get through it and kind of figure things out. And it's a learning process since you haven't done it. And I think that's one of the things about the guys today that are so good. They have a lot of teaching that comes by the time they're in high school, college. I mean, they've had so much really excellent teaching, and from fundamentals to the mental game, that it makes a huge, huge difference. And whereas we were trial by error, really.
Yeah, Jim, we met at Johnny Bench and Doug Flynn's golf tournament in Lexington. The late Garo Yepremian was a celebrity guest there as well. Did you and he ever get together and talk kicking?
We did. We hung out. We'd be riding back and forth between Rupp Arena, and so I usually jump in there and try and pick Garo's brain a little bit. I'd want to learn a little bit about him, about his tie business that he had, and just a great guy. And we spent some time talking kicking, and and again, I mean, he was older than me, and he was one of the reasons I started trying as a sock shell kicker, because I thought it was a really cool way to kick with your Premian, the Gogol axe, and then my true hero was John Stenerud, and that's why I wore number 3.
Well, Pete Gogolak wore number 3 because that was the amount of points you got for kicking a field goal.
Yep.
That's probably why Jan wore number
3 is a popular number for kickers.
Yep.
I remember when the foreign kickers first came into the league and they were kicking sideways. Like you said, Gogolak was a big deal with the Giants too. I mean, that was one of the AFC, NFC sore points was Gogolak getting hijacked.
Gogolak was the first guy to
got hijacked
from the AFL to the NFL.
The Giants hijacked him, yeah. But I remember when they first
in high tops. He kicked in high tops.
Yeah. I remember with the resentment, though. I remember Alex Karras saying, you break your ass in the trenches for an hour and a half, and then some little guy comes out 5'5". I geeked the touchdown. He goes, I want to win the game. I want to strangle a little son of a bitch,
Alex Karras was not a fan. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of players that are not fans of kickers, particularly if you don't make big kicks. I don't. Yeah, like I say to people, I didn't make the position. We didn't make it a specialized position. I just took advantage of a specialized position. Yeah, I love playing football. I mean, I love playing quarterback, but I didn't get tall enough. I couldn't see over the offensive line at some point. So,
how tall are you, Jim? 5'8"?
5'6". I wish I were 5'8", Frank. That would have been awesome.
Well, I wanted to guess 5'7", but I wanted, I guess.
The real deal. You kick standing on a phone book, I guess. 5'6". So what was your biggest thrill as a kicker, Jim? I mean, if you point to your biggest moment as a kicker, what was it?
It actually came in a losing game that probably we're playing the 49ers in Super Bowl 23 in Miami. There's a little around 3:20 to go in the game, and I've got a 40-yarder put us ahead with 3 minutes. With that 3 minutes to go, a little over 3 minutes, and I made that kick. So we go up 16-13, and so Sport Magazine has always done a preliminary ballot for the MVP. And each of my kicks either tied the game or put us ahead. I had 3 in that game. And with 3 minutes to go, I was the MVP of the Super Bowl. However, Montana and Rice drove 92 yards, and Montana hits John Taylor on a slant in the end zone with 34 seconds to go to beat us. So that was probably the biggest kick in the biggest situation. But really, any kick, I had a number of game winners. Anytime you could do something to help the team, that was making big kicks or making kicks in general, or the way that a kicker can help the team. Because obviously, I was literally on the field for 3 or 4 minutes of game time in 3 hours. So these guys go on these long drives. You need to make the kick when, especially in a game-winning situation.
And half that time you were on the field, you were running off it on the kickoffs, right? Because you usually kickers kick and then they run off the field quickly.
Frank.
That was a low blow, Frank.
Frank, that was a low blow. It sure was. So that was the thing about all these foreign-born kickers coming in, that Kike touchdown. They didn't know what the heck was going on.
Hey,
so
Garrow
Newman.
Was a great passer. What are you talking about?
Oh, my God. How about you throw the ball with the wrong hand on top of it?
You know what was really crazy about that Washington-Miami game? Miami was undefeated and went into the Super Bowl as an underdog, 2.5-point underdog.
Yeah. Well, continue.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really crazy.
So continue.
So anyway, don't leave that hanging there with nobody ever ran. See, later on, you got American-born kickers. I didn't play soccer. I was a football, basketball, baseball, and golf guy. So, I mean, I just played football. So, Frank, I made 18 tackles in my career. I didn't miss very many. I did miss a couple. One was a 100-and-something yard return by Carl Roaches from Houston. But apart from that, I made tackles. And the reason I know that is because somebody basically said the same thing you did, Frank. So I had to go research it a little bit. And I had to find out. I knew I made some tackles in there.
Somebody showed you the film after you were concussed.
That's a nice verb, concussed.
Hey, with those helmets we wore pretty much every time.
Yeah, that tells me how tough you were, because if you were 5'6", you had to have balls to tackle a guy who was running full speed, weighed over 200 pounds, 225, in the open field, because you were the last man on coverage, correct?
Yes, I've got a good story about that. We were playing Green Bay in the preseason, and you got all these young guys trying to make the team, and they're going to make, most of these guys are going to make it on special teams. But the thing was, they were the best players on their college teams, so most of them didn't play special teams. So they're kind of learning as they go. I hit a kickoff, and then we're running down, and the R1 and the L1, the guy's right next to me. I see him go down. One goes way right, one goes way left, and there's a gap about as wide as the hash marks. Here comes the offensive lineman, protector, in front of the ball carrier. It's 2 of them, and the ball carrier coming at me. And so I'm thinking, I've got to find out where the pursuit's coming from, and I want to turn him that way back into the pursuit. So I kind of did. I got him turned back, back toward the sideline a little bit, and I'm thinking, all right, they're getting here. I got to do something. So I just took out the first guy. He tripped. My goal was to take out that guy. Hopefully the ball carrier would fall over him. And that actually is what happened. So I should have gotten a penalty for undercutting that return, the blocker, personal protector, took him out. Ball carrier fell, and everybody else too, all the pursuit. Everybody ended up on top of me. So I'm laying on the ground, and I can't get up. I'm rolling around. My left arm will not work. I have no strength. You ever try to get off the ground with one arm? It is not easy to do. And I'm rolling around trying to get up, and their trainer runs out and goes, "What's wrong?" I said, My arm. I can't lift my arm. "Oh, you got a stinger, no big deal. No big deal. You'll be fine." So we go walking off, and I'm thinking, well, if I had to kick right now, I don't know that I'd be able to kick. So my buddy, on the sideline, my buddy comes up to me, Tim Crumrye. Tim Crumrye is the craziest guy I've ever played with. My daughters used to babysit for his kids. We used to ride to the stadium together. We'd ride to the airport together. So I would drive. I don't drink. So he could drink on the way home on the plane. I could take him back home in his Porsche, drop him off, make sure he got home. And the deal was I got to keep the Porsche. So I'd drive around in the Porsche for a while, go home, pick him up the next day, and we'd go to practice. But, fair exchange as far as I was concerned. He was happy with it. So here comes Timmy, my buddy. Our lockers were next to each other. Anthony Munoz on one side, Tim Crumrye on the other side. And he walks up and goes, "Breacher, you all right?" And my shoulder's killing. "Oh, you got a stinger?" "Yeah, Timmy, I got a stinger, man. It is killing me." "Breacher." "Yeah, Timmy." Thinking, "Oh, man, you'll be all right." "Breacher, welcome to the NFL."
That's pretty funny.
Tell me when a coach freezes you, right? If a coach calls a timeout right before you're out there and you're about to kick, and a coach calls a timeout to freeze you, does it bother you? Does it bother a kicker? Is it?
I suppose some guys. If a guy misses, coaches are going to do it, right? So whether that was the impact or not. But my thought is, I've been standing around for 3 hours. Chances are another minute is not going to be that impactful. So I'm going to go through the same mental process. Some guys will run all the way back to the sideline. If you watch, they did that to Robbie Gould 2 weeks ago. He runs back over, kicks a couple balls in the net, and goes through. Now he's going through his whole routine all the way back out to the field. And really, you can mentally kind of go through it. And that's what I would do. I just go back through my routine. And it's the same when I'm standing on the field or standing on the sideline. I'm still going through my routine in my head. So I don't think it does. Maybe a younger kicker may have some impact, but somebody who's been doing it for a while, I still don't think it does. But every once in a while, a guy will kick a ball, make one, and then he'll miss the next one. So I saw Marvin Lewis do it to Justin Tucker. Tucker made the first one, but he had called timeout just before he kicked it. And then Tucker missed the next one, which is very rare. And so Marvin Lewis was all over that for the rest of his career.
What's this routine, this mental routine that you go through, like the preparation, having to sit on the sidelines for 3 hours? I'm curious about the Zen routine that you go through.
It's a repetition. So when I go out to start kicking in the spring or the summer, I'm doing this routine. I get up, to the ball, I look, I pick my spot, I take my steps back, take my steps over. I might go through some mental gymnastics. Typically for me, I would pick a word, like a tempo, usually tempo. Kicking is very similar to golf in terms of the swing, the tempo. So it's usually something tempo-wise or get through it or whatever the case. Just something as a reminder to me, and that kind of settled me in. So I would do that every time I kicked, from the first day I went out and kicked to the last kick of the season. So I'm repeating this thing thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And that's why when you go out for a big kick, like in the Super Bowl or a game-winning kick, if you're doing the same thing you've been doing all these thousands of times, you can literally remove yourself from the situation. Frank, you love to golf. It's like that guy who has the putt in the Masters or the U.S. Open, and it's like people are saying, how can they do this? Well, they have their routine, and you hear it all the time. They talk about the guy's routine. He's got a really consistent routine. That's how you do it. That's the only way you can do it. You got to kind of trick your mind, because the other part of that is you're probably spending time thinking about the outcome. When I work with young kickers, it's your routine. Let the routine. Don't worry about the outcome. The outcome will happen no matter what you do. If you go through your routine, the outcome is going to be more positive than if you're worrying about the outcome before you do the other stuff.
Wow.
So it's kind of working in reverse. You just can't you can't think about the situation at all. Because if you're thinking about it, then you're going to probably miss.
Yeah. Let me ask you, the Dallas kicker, Brett Maher, who missed 4 in a row.
Yeah.
What was he going through, and what were you going through every time he missed one?
I was sick. My son writes for CBS Sports, and he texted me after the third one. He goes, "Dad, what are you doing right now?" I was sick for the guy. I thought I was going to throw up. I felt so bad for him, because we've all had these days when it just wasn't going where you wanted it to go. And, I kind of liken it, one, maybe having the yips putting, but the other part of it, I think, is, say you're up hitting a drive and you hit it dead right, but as you hit it, you're thinking, man, I just pulled that left, and you look up and it went right, and you thought it went left, and when the ball's not going where you thought it was going to go, that really gets in your head. And I was glad to see him make his last couple, even though he missed the one block, but it was going to go way left against San Francisco. But he did make his last 2 kicks, and hopefully that's what he takes into the offseason, is those last 2 kicks, that feeling, because you never want to have no idea where the ball is going, because those 18 feet, 6 inches, 10 inches, whatever they are, start looking like they're about 5 feet wide.
Does his routine change at all during that stretch of missing 4 in a row?
I don't know. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, what's he doing? I would have. First thing I would have done is go over to the sideline in the net, trying to work my way through the feeling that I want. Trying to get that feeling back, and knowing that, have an idea of where the ball's going on a consistent basis. Actually, the Bengals had a kicker, really good kicker, had a really nice career. Mike Nugent kind of went through something similar. One year, all of a sudden, he couldn't make an extra point. Now, an extra point's 33 yards. It's a lot harder than what it used to be, but he all of a sudden couldn't make an extra point. And then went on. They ended up releasing him because he just couldn't make them. And then he took some time off, came back, and kicked really well for a couple teams before he retired. So sometimes, Maher's got this off season. I'm sure he'll come back and be fine.
What are those?
Hopefully.
What do those conversations look like for? So the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys is, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, what's his career going to look like after missing 4 kicks in such a crucial time? Do they have? Is he brought into the office? Do they talk about the possibility of letting him go? What does it look like for a kicker?
All those things are possible.
Wow.
I don't know. I would think he had a really good year.
Yeah.
That they would stick with him. Probably spend a little bit more time with him in the offseason when he's kicking, and just see how that's going. Get him in some games in the preseason. But I would imagine they'll have somebody in camp.
Right.
I would imagine they'll probably keep somebody through camp, and probably have somebody on the practice squad,
so
just in case, because he's really had a nice career. I hate to think, because of one stretch, that he's going to lose he's going to lose that. I think of Carlson, who kicks in Oakland. He started off in Minnesota, and his first 3 games, he missed the game winner. I think he missed one other kick. And Mike Zimmer cut him. And he went on. He's now one of the best kickers in the NFL. So early on, you don't have a history, right? You haven't shown that you can do it. Sometimes, guys that are great in college, when they start paying you and they can cut you and you can lose your job, it's amazing how much more difficult it can become for some guys.
In the middle of that, just on closing on Brett Maher, when he's in the middle of that stretch, do the other guys on the team talk to him, or do they encourage him? Or, I mean, you can't speak for Dallas, but what would happen on Cincinnati if you happen to miss one in a row or two in a row?
I have some guys come over and encourage me. I don't remember anybody saying, get your act together.
Asshole.
Like that. Listen, people don't know how to respond to kickers, right? I mean, they don't know. They don't know because when a football player kind of messes up that's out on the field, come on, get your act together. You got to catch that ball. You got to make that tackle. It's a want-to thing, and it's not like we want to miss, but it's as much in your head as it is any other. Probably more so than anything besides quarterbacking. And people get worried about messing with kickers' heads. I haven't found too many places where you have these coaches that yell at people a lot, that when they're yelling at kickers a lot, that you have a lot of success.
So
you got to almost encourage them. I build them up, encourage them. If they can't do it, then you have to make a decision. But it doesn't do any good to rip him. Or the one that always gets me is that coach who wants to stand there right in warm-up, stands right by your shoulder, and you're trying to get yourself ready for the game, or he's doing it in practice, and you're working on whatever you're working on, just like everybody else is, right? But the coach thinks if he stands there and puts the pressure on you, it's going to make you better. Well, it's going to just make me a little bit perturbed because I'm trying to get ready for the game by practicing what I'm doing. And so forth. So that part of that is my routine. All you're doing is getting in my way.
Interrupting the routine. So a coach's confidence can really affect the way you're going to go out there and approach your kick.
I believe so. The toughest coach I ever played with was Forrest Gregg. Forrest Gregg was hard on everybody, but he was extremely fair. But I remember my first year, a full year with the Bengals in '81, I got off to a shaky start, and I'm getting ready to go out and kick a field goal, and he walks up next to me, and I started off like 7 for 13, and 5 of them hit an upright. It was crazy. And he comes over and he kind of puts his arm on my shoulder. He goes, "We believe in you. I know you're going to do it." Went out there, made that kick, made 10 in a row after that, and I really appreciate that because here I am, many, many years later, telling you how important that was to me at that time.
It was interesting to me before when you said if you were in this situation as the Dallas kicker, that you would try and get that feeling back. Not that that routine is like you made the analogy to golf, like the old joke is about the 165 things you're supposed to think about at impact. When you swing a golf club, and you got to get all of that minutia out of your head and just concentrate on the routine that you've done 1,000 times and not think about the moment.
Exactly. And, you hope by the time you've been doing it for a long time that you don't have those 165,000 things going through your head. There was a friend of mine playing a scramble. He was a fairly new golfer. He's gotten lessons, stands up on the first tee, and he's standing there. I said, "Kirk, are you going to swing the club?" He goes, I can't. I got so many things going. I can't take it back. It's stuck. And to your point, you get too many things swirl around your head. It kind of paralyzes you almost.
Yeah.
Well, before you ask your question, I'm so sorry.
No, I was just saying.
Yeah. Are kickers weird?
I suppose so. That is a reputation that's gotten around. Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What would you do when you're standing around? Your job is to stand around for 3 hours, stretch some, hit some balls into a net, and then you spend the rest of the time watching a game. You're throwing, and then on AstroTurf, we couldn't even find grass to toss in the air to see what the wind's doing. and so you're in your head for 3 hours.
Yeah.
What do you think? You don't have any choice but to become a little bit weird. My goal always was, I didn't play soccer. I was playing football. I played baseball. I played basketball. I felt like I was a really good athlete that could just happen to kick. So I spent a lot of time not trying to be that weird guy. And I would throw to the defensive backs, and I would play quarterback in some of the drills, and I'd go play wide out and do whatever I could to be a part of the team, so I didn't come across as that weird kicker.
Got it.
Because there are some guys that have are out there.
You know where that came from? The evolution of weird kicker came from the guy who replaced Gogolak in Buffalo called Booth Lustig.
Is that right?
And Booter was as weird as a guy could ever be. Did you ever meet Booth Lustig?
I did not meet Booth Lustig, but I've heard of him, but I didn't meet him, no.
You've heard the stories, I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure you've heard the stories.
I was...
Or it was like a Horst Millman for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's from Germany, and he would kick an extra point, and he'd get all excited, jumping up, I kick a touchdown. I didn't realize that started there in Cincinnati until recently.
Yeah.
You get these foreign-born guys, or you get guys that spend too much time in their heads or don't have a clue what's going on. So they kick a touchdown, and their team thinks, these guys are weird.
Let me ask you another question. You said you were a size 7 shoe regularly, but you squeeze your foot into a size 5.
I did.
How did you learn to kick soccer style? And why did you do that?
So a couple things. I played kickball in elementary school, and the fence was in left field. So it was kind of a soccer move. You kind of had to go around your body to kick it over there. And then pump, pass, and kick. I did that, and I remember when I was 12 years old, I went to the 49er training camp. I was one step away from going inside the stadium, and I had the longest throw of anybody 12 or 13 years old. I had one of the best punts. I literally shanked my place kick, went dead left, down on the ground. Part of the reason was am I a soccer style kicker, or am I straight on? And I was trying to do some in-between type thing, and it was a mess. And so it was then I decided, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to become a soccer style kicker. And then the next year I played Pop Warner football, and the coach says, I'll give 2 points if you kick an extra point. Anybody can kick. And I said, I think I can do that. And I made like 17 or 18 out of, I think I went 17 for 18. I kicked a few field goals, so that kind of, I was a place kicker after that. They were soccer style. But growing up, I just thought it was a cool way to kick. I tried to do what I saw when I was 12, 1968. I go to a kicking camp, and the guy there had kicked a cow where I ended up going later on, and he kicked for a semi-pro team there in Sacramento, and he was straight on, and I'm the only one that wanted to kick soccer style. And he said, I don't have any idea how to do that. So I'm kind of stuck, doing what I can, and we get all done. Brings everybody up, and then, I have T-shirts and stuff. Most improved, most this, most that. And finally, he gets to me, and he points at me, and he says, and you, the most disappointing.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That was the start. That wasn't the first time I heard stuff like that when it came to my soccer style kicking or my dreams and goals in the future, but it was okay. I knew I gave what I had, and I was better than what I had there, but I was really learning still.
When did you start wearing the smaller shoe?
When I started kicking off the ground. So in college, we could still use a tee. At that time, they can't anymore. But as soon as the ball was on the ground, it's like, you can't have anything hanging over the edge. Mm. So I worked my way down to a size 5, and usually it was like a Copa, really good, like kangaroo leather. They would send it, or a pony. You were a pony.
I was a pony guy.
They bought a German soccer company, and they had great soccer shoes. So I wore those too. So, but down to a 5, and I would stick my foot in some water and get the shoe wet, and I just wear it around like that until it dried on my foot and kind of formed my foot like a slipper. Now, it was a tight slipper in the toes, but I would wear a little bit, probably 6.5 usually on my left foot. And in my right foot, though, I wore that shoe, and I kind of loosened the laces and walk around with it not fully tied until I had to tie it back up. But It was good. I mean, I liked having it nice and tight. I would imagine most guys today go at least one size or size and a half smaller than their normal shoes.
So, Jim, Derek's going to show you a picture. Now, it's 1975.
Hold on.
Okay. Now, see that? That's
Yes.
That's me. And look at my feet. I'm a barefoot kicker.
Oh my gosh, Frank.
Yeah, and because I couldn't conceive of how I could kick with those laces in the way, because I was a soccer style kicker and I kicked with my instep. Funny story. How long was the?
Well, you got to ask him about your form.
Yeah, how's my form?
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
it looks really good, actually.
Yeah, I think my leg could be a little bit better with my kicking foot. I think it's a little, too shallow. But that was in the World Football League, and I was on the field the day Marty Schottenheimer stopped being a linebacker and started becoming a coach.
Interesting.
In the morning, I spent 2 years in the World Football League. The first year with Portland, and Dick Corey was our head coach, and Marty was an assistant coach. And he said Marty was a great linebacker. And at the lunch break, he said, "Dick, I don't have it anymore." And Dick said, "Well, then come out this afternoon and you'll be my linebackers coach." And that's how
he did it.
How Marty's career started.
That's interesting. He was a great coach too.
Yep, he was
great coach.
And also,
so Frank, what was your background? What was your background then?
Well, I was a soccer player in college, a soccer and baseball player in college at Jacksonville with Artis Gilmore. And then I went into the World Football League as a publicist. But how long did it take you to kick how long did you have, like 2.5 seconds to get the kickoff, or what was it?
1.3.
Yeah.
1.25, 1.3.
Okay, that's part of my story, because I was always kicking in camp. And I could make it from like 40, 45 yards or so. So Dick Corey says to me one day in camp with Portland, he says, "Frank, come down here and try with the kickers." So I was in my jeans and my bare feet, and I had never seen a snap or a rush, and I missed the first one from 30 yards, pulled it left, and that was fine. But they took the clock on me and they said, "Well, 2.75. You got to do better than that." Damn. So the next one, they said, "Okay, what I got to do?" They said, "Well, 1.3." So I said, "Okay, I'll do this one quicker." The next kick hit the center in the ass. I hit the center in the ass with the kick, and that was the end of my kicking career.
2 kicks.
Oh, that's a big difference when you got to get off in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys can just do it, just put the ball down and kick it.
Yeah.
That was interesting. We were talking before about the shoe and the smallest shoe. I remember tending bar in New Orleans, and the last game of the season for the Saints, and I'm tending bar, and at like 5:30, it looks like Pickett's charge. I mean, this mob of people come charging through the door screaming. I'm like, what happened? Dempsey kicked the 64-yarder, right? 63 yards to win the game against Detroit, I think. But he had that shaved toe. He had that cutoff toe. I want to ask you, who is the best kicker you've ever seen, and why? Why do you consider him the best kicker? Lunato Grosser? Who do you think is the best kicker you've ever seen?
You won't find any straight-on kickers in the top 100. And Lou Grosser was unbelievable. And also playing a position, different time. Mark Mosley was the last one, and Mark was great. He won an MVP at a phenomenal year, but your top kickers are all going to be soccer-style kickers. Now, Justin Tucker is the best kicker I've ever seen, and he's just absolutely amazing. His consistency, and he doesn't miss the middle very often. He's great, but the soccer-style kickers and the kickers today, compared to when I played, Nick Lowry, Morton Anderson, Gary Anderson were all great kickers during my time, and yet the guys today are better than they were. So every generation's different. When the soccer-style kickers first came in, they were kind of figuring it out too. And now and now they have a handle on everything that they're doing in terms of training and dietitians, and it's just different today. But I would say anybody that's a shortstop kicker is probably better than anybody that was a straight-on kicker.
Yeah, well, your guy in Cincinnati, Evan McPherson's a pretty good kicker as well, don't you think?
Really good. What's that?
I said, don't you think?
I think Evan's exceptional. Yeah, I think I like him a lot. He's going to have a great career. He's going to blow by anything I've ever done.
Well, that's a hell of a saying to say that. So you think he could replace you as the all-time leading scorer for Cincinnati?
I do. Yeah. I do. And, if the guy's really good, because he's a weapon, he's really strong. And if you notice, the kickers today, I mean, kicking 55 to 60-yard field goals seems like nothing anymore. Yeah. We didn't even try that many 50-yard field goals. So everything's like 10 yards farther. And the percentages have gone up from those distances. So yeah, I think Evan will be around for a long time and have a great career.
Well, the way you talk about kicking, and who would know better than you, confidence is 99.9% of it. And I mean, this kid borders on cockiness. I mean, he said before the AFC Championship, when looks like we're going to the AFC Championship game, he comes out, he has to kick a 45-yarder or whatever. It was like a day at the beach,
It's routine, Billy, routine.
Yeah, routine
is
one thing.
It's routine. The funny part is he's very humble, got a lot of humility, and he was talking to his teammate, right? I mean, it wasn't like he was telling the world about it. You've seen those times where, guys out there, he's getting the crowd all fired up because he's going to go kick the game winner instead of spending time on his routine, and then end up missing the kick, and it's not a good look.
Well, you talk about confidence. Joe Burrow's got a lot of confidence also. When somebody asked him, what is the window for his Super Bowl? And he said, my entire career. That's my window. Whoa, that's confidence. So you got.
If you think about it, I mean, whether it be Mahomes or Josh Allen, you kind of have to go in thinking that, don't you? I mean, you've already done the Super Bowl once. You went to another time AFC Championship. There's no reason to think that with the way you play that it can't be possible every year.
Well, you said the two most important guys for confidence are quarterback and kicker. So Cincinnati's got both of those things locked for many years to come, hopefully.
They got a real young team. Right? Zach Taylor's got them. Does a player like Burrows affect free agency? Will free agents say, I want that guy to throw me the ball. I want to get to that team.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The last 2 years, they've brought in free agents, and in each case, they said, I want to play with Joe Burrow because he can take us somewhere. And those guys that came in this year and the previous one, think about this. I mean, now they went to a Super Bowl AFC Championship game. So that was a good decision on their part. And you're going to find guys, just like guys wanted to play for Brady, who would take less to play for with Brady, just because they knew there was a good chance that they could get a Super Bowl or at least go deep into the playoffs.
Jim, you played in 2 Super Bowls. You lost them both in very close games. How is it getting ready as a player? How is getting ready for the Super Bowl different than getting ready for a regular season game?
Can I just
just
hold that question right quick, Jim? I want to know why did he have to preface that question with you didn't win the Super Bowl? I don't understand that preface. Do you take offense to that, Jim? Because I do.
No, Derek, it's a fact. It's a fact I can't deny.
You can look it up.
It's there for the rest of my life. It's just a reminder. Thanks, Frank. It's a reminder right around the Super Bowl. It's just like when they do these replays of these Super Bowls, and our Super Bowl 23 was a close game. It was Montana's coming out party when he drives them 92 yards. That's on all the time. It's just another reminder, Frank. Thanks a lot.
and thank you, Derek, for being a conspiracy theorist again. I was just restating fact, which in the whatever.
Sorry to interrupt the question.
The replay of the kicker running off the field after he kicks the ball.
Oh no! At 2, Billy.
There's another one. Take this one with you. Get a little twist.
Can I tell you real quick?
Sure.
Horst Millman kicked off one time, and Jack Lambert was coming at him, and he turned and ran the other way. He ran towards the goal line, and Lambert ran him down, and he said, "Don't you ever embarrass me like that again. I'm going to squish you. I'll kill you next time."
That's hilarious.
So that's where those reputations of kickers come from.
Yeah.
All right, so back to my question. How is it different preparing for the Super Bowl than an AFC championship game or a regular season game?
So, one, you keep getting more and more people come to your locker, and all of a sudden the media gets bigger. It becomes bigger and bigger. The other part is you have that dead week in there, which is you're trying to get tickets together, all kinds of things. You're trying to get together for your family, which is really a nice week to have. I don't know what we would have done if we had to do it all in the same week. But you hope teams try and keep their preparation as similar as normal. Because you don't want to get off it too much because it's that preparation, right? I mean, if you throw things off kilter too much, that's when teams have issues. So you try not to have it any different. You try and still to guys that it's a game. Once you get into the game, it's a game. But it's that first few minutes of the game, just trying to get settled in and realizing we're just playing a football game. Yes, it's bigger than any other football game we've played, but it's still a football game. Just like the NCAA championship is a basketball game. You got to get into the routine, the rhythm of the game, and then it becomes normal. So your routine is kind of critical to keep it as close to normal, even when you have different things coming at you. So having veterans that have been there is very helpful. That can be really good. If you have a really young team that hasn't been there, then you probably have to rely on your coaching staff to really direct you.
Well, you were a terrific clutch kicker. You made all of your kicks in overtime, and you made all of your kicks in the Super Bowl. So
wow,
that speaks to your preparation.
Yeah, when you have a walk,
appreciate that.
When you have a walk-off kick, is that like the biggest high? I mean, you go out there, you're going to win the game with the kick. Is that it? Is that the ultimate for a kicker? It's like a walk-off hit for a ball player, baseball player.
That's the biggest way we can help the team. I don't do a whole lot else during a game. So if you can kick a game winner, yes. There isn't anything in the rest of my life that I'll ever do that matches what happens when you kick a game winner, particularly in a big game. So yeah, it was a blast because those guys, I mean, that work so hard. This is your way to be great team player.
Well, I'm not going to let you off the hook because you're here, and we're delighted you're here. Couldn't be happier that you came. And prediction for the Super Bowl, what do you think? Phillies 1.5 over Kansas City?
Tell you, Andy Reid is phenomenal with 2 weeks, and they have such a creative offense, and they have a great offensive line. I tell you what, Philadelphia, that defensive line, their defense is unbelievable. I don't know if they can keep them all together, but they have them together right now, and they're going to bring it. They run the ball incredibly well, so they can control the line of scrimmage. I think on both sides of the ball, their offensive line is probably the only one that may be better than Kansas City's. I think they can control the line of scrimmage, keep the ball in Mahomes' hands if they need to. And I think when a number one defense has played a number one offense in the past, the defenses always win. So I think it's going to happen again.
Who's got the advantage if it comes down to kicks? Who's got the better kicker in your opinion?
Good question.
Kind of like Jake Elliott. Harrison Butker's had an up and down season this year. He had a great game against the Bengals, certainly, and he's had some huge kicks. Jake Elliott is, he was here with the Bengals, drafted by the Bengals. I think Jake's great guy. I really like him a lot. So I'm going to say the Philadelphia Eagles have with Jake Elliott.
Billy, you have any other
We
questions?
had a great year this year.
Billy, you have any other questions?
You mean Derek?
No, I mean Billy.
Oh, okay. You were looking at me. So.
Yeah, but your name is not Billy.
I know, but you're looking at. I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to help.
That was a Pat Mahomes pass right there. You look one spot, you throw it somewhere else.
Well, I do think I do have a question, or maybe it's a statement.
Is your name Billy?
Too late. It's too late. I'm taking over.
Up in your shirt.
Do you
He's thwarting me.
Do you think that Mahomes being hurt probably has a big impact on how well the Chiefs perform? Do you think that's going to be an impact or not?
It's going to be 2 weeks of constant therapy. I think he'll be pretty close to it. He may not be 100%, but he moved around pretty well against the Bengals, and I think he'll be moving around pretty well. It'll just be interesting to see that pass rush, how it really impacts him.
Well, I'll ask you this question for Billy: over or under? You're going to take the over.
I was just gonna
the over. The over and under is 50. Will you take the over? Should Billy take the over or the under?
That's funny.
It's the rent money. Think about this, because it's the rent money. You know, this is the kids getting.
I don't know
fed,
if I'd do the
money.
over or under. I would take the Eagles to win. I wouldn't do the over or the under. I think it's going to be. I don't know. You know, I can see Philadelphia scoring a number of points the way they run the ball. And I don't know that I can see Kansas City score. I mean, if Kansas City scores, I think it's going to be like the Bengal game, 23-20, something like that, 24-21.
So you just
I
gave
can
us,
see Philly.
so you just gave us the under.
The under, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that, but I also want Philly getting to maybe 31. That's what I'm saying. I'm going with the Eagles. I'm not doing the over/under. Just I'll go straight up.
There you have it.
Bet
Bet the rent. That's the deal. Go out there, bet the rent.
There you have it.
You got professional football player telling you to bet the. I want to ask you, can you step back 1 second? I want to see that jersey, because that's really cool jersey.
Yes.
Yes.
My
Oh yeah, that's nice.
sweatshirt that I wore to 10 straight Bengal wins. Unfortunately, it didn't come through. So it's funny. When I played, I wasn't superstitious at all. But now I'm pulling out my same sweatshirt every week this season because they kept winning. So I don't know. I was kind of crazy.
I got another question. I asked the same question to Bauer.
Hank Bauer
Hank Bauer.
of the San Diego
Hank.
Chargers. Hank's a beauty.
Yeah, I know Hank.
Hank's a beauty, ain't he?
He's an interesting guy.
That's a euphemism. But yeah, he's a beauty.
He's a beauty.
Do you get into the games for free? For at Cincinnati?
No.
I'm sorry. Could you say that on camera again? No games for free.
No. If there's something going on where they want you to do a meet and greet or something, yes. Or occasionally we have an autograph sign. This year we didn't do autograph signings, so we didn't. No, for the most part, we don't.
So if it benefits the
How
league.
about Hank? How about Hank?
No, Hank did not get in for free either, which is shocking to me. And I wonder, like, do you guys take offense to this? Because I would.
I'm not any different. So
Yeah.
If it benefits
it
the league.
is what it is. I mean, the Bengals have been there. There's a lot of things going on that are really great in Cincinnati, and they're changing with time. I mean, Mike Brown has been around for a long time, and really his granddaughters, Elizabeth and Carolyn, are really kind of bringing him into this
Century?
millennial. It's a different thinking, I mean, it's a young person thinking, how does that young person, because you really have to, you want that young fan to be involved, right? I mean, a lot of places the fans are getting much older. How do you get the young fan base involved? And they're coming up with great ideas to get the young fan base involved, and it's been great. I mean, I think the fans really appreciate what's going on in Cincinnati, and plus you got Burrow and you got 2 AFC Championship games in a row. I mean, they've got a waiting list now for tickets where they hadn't. Even after going 5 straight playoffs with Andy Dalton and AJ Green, they still didn't have a waiting list. They weren't even selling out. Now you can't get a ticket. It's the hardest ticket in town.
I got a couple more questions, so that we're going to expand this podcast a little bit. But did you have a kicking ball that you used?
No.
Because teams,
if I'm going to be honest with you, it was my era kickers that created the reason for the kicking balls. So when we played, they took a ball literally right out of a box and pumped it up. and that's what they used. Do you think an NBA player would go take a ball out of the box? They take one off the rack that's been broken in, right?
Mm-hmm.
A baseball player, they get that mud, they rub it all down because it's slippery. There's a film that's on these things, and that's what happens with these footballs. And now they're hard as a rock because the seams haven't been broken down, and then you have a ball that's slippery. So Elway used to have stickum that he used. I know guys that use rosin. I mean, anything that they get their hands so the ball wouldn't slip out of their hands. So during my era, I remember going to Houston, and Tony Zendejas was there, and their balls were like old.
Like us.
Very much like
us.
Quarterbacks loved them. The wide receivers loved them. The kickers, everybody loved these balls because they were broken in, and they're not getting the outside weather as a factor. So they used them for several weeks. So I go back and like, hey, well, give me some of the game balls so I can go do something with. So I go break them down over weight bench, break the seams down. I take them outside on the AstroTurf and rub them down, trying to get that film off. Do anything to break them in. So the quarterbacks, the kickers, and the wide receiver, everybody likes the ball. I put them in a whirlpool, put them in a dryer. I mean, guys, I heard all kinds of things that guys would try and do. But the idea was to break in the ball. Well, because we were handling the ball, we weren't supposed to be handling the ball, apparently. That's when they went to these K-balls.
Oh.
And the whole idea was what they do now. Quarterbacks get the ball during the week, and they get to throw the balls around and break them in. That was all we ever wanted. And I don't even know why they use the K-balls anymore, because the balls are broken in, and that's what we were always trying to do. Just get a broken in ball so everybody liked it.
So when the Deflategate came about, that was another indication of guys burying the balls, the air pressure in the balls, correct? So let me ask you.
Apparently, that's what, if you believe that that's what they were doing.
So
when it gets really cold, if it's really cold out, my tire pressure on my car is going to be down. So
yeah.
If it's cold in New England, that ball's going to be down. So
in the 27-7 victory for the Bengals over the Chargers in the coldest game ever played, obviously you had to kick that day. Were you kicking balls out of the box? And is it harder?
Yes.
Is it harder to kick balls out when it's that cold?
Yes, out of the box. They were brand new. It wasn't. We didn't handle the ball till the end of my career, like in the late 80s, early 90s, probably around 90 during that time. So that time, the league brings the balls, and yes, they were right out of the box, and they weren't in a warmer. So these balls were like bricks. So I woke up the next morning after the game, and the top of my foot was black and blue.
Wow.
Wow.
It's amazing.
It was miserable. I was fortunate that I had 2 field goals, but they were downwind, and the wind blowing like 30 miles an hour. And Ralph Benerska had to try a couple kicks into the wind, and I felt for him because, 35 yards was almost impossible. It was blowing so hard.
During the course of your career, Jim, have you ever had a coach say to you, like, say you're 55 yards out, 54 yards out, or whatever, like before you kick, they just send you in, or they ever say to you, you got this? Are you comfortable from here? Did they ever give you
Yeah, that's pretty typical. Coaches talk about it, and because environment changes in the stadium, the wind might adjust, and so that's a good thing. Like on a game winner, which hash do you want the ball? If the coaches talk to you a little bit and find out what your preferences are. So that's if they're communicating. Yes, they're doing that, and special teams coaches do that too.
Jim, your longest yard, you kicked a couple of 53-yarders in your career. I wonder often when I'm watching games now when they hit these 57-yarders, 58-yarders, and they clear by so much. Why they don't say would be good from 67 yards, because that's so easy for them to calculate via computer. Why
somebody does? There's one of them that says it'll show how far it would have been good from. I'm not sure which one of the who broadcasts that, but there's somebody that does that. What it would have been good from, And I really think we're going to see a 70-yard field goal in the next few years.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good. No.
I got a question for the group. Just something I didn't realize was happening. The controversy with Tony Romo. What are your thoughts on him as a commentator and the issues that sometimes the public has with him during his commentating and also after the game?
I'll let you answer first.
You don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
Well, I think he's become much more relaxed in the booth, and I'm fine. Yeah, I'm actually fine with how he does it. I mean, he used to spend time the whole game predicting what the next play was going to be. He's kind of gotten away from doing that, but I still think he does a good job. We're not too hard on these guys. Yeah, I think he does fine. I mean, he explains what's going on well, and I mean, I just watched the game anyway.
Yeah,
right.
I think as an announcer is analogous to his quarterback ability. So no, I mean he was a really good quarterback that
Never won the big one.
never won even the semi big one. I mean, he won one playoff game in his whole career, but he was a good quarterback, and I think he's a good announcer. I don't think he's the best.
Yeah, I think it's subjective to announcers. Some announcers just annoy you, you know. Like Collinsworth annoys me, you know, but that's me, you know.
Oh, that's his partner. You're talking about his
He annoys me, but that's just me.
Collingsworth. His kid annoys me, not Collingsworth, because he's there. He's there because he's a Collingsworth's kid, not for anything else. But
If you listen to him, I was walking out. So Chris gets a lot of heat here in Cincinnati because everybody thinks he lives here, so he's hard on the Bengals. And he may be, but I think it's more guys are just talking about what they're seeing. But I walked into the room one time, and I'm thinking, oh, Chris is on. And I turned, and it was his son sounds exactly like him.
Yep. What are you doing these days, Jim?
Well, retired. Got lots of grandkids, so there's stuff going on all the time. Pick up pickleball, playing golf when the weather's better, and staying busy, trying to get involved, stay involved in the community too.
You're doing a podcast with Anthony Munoz and our mutual friend of the show and of you, Kenny Anderson.
Kenny Anderson, Dave Lapham. So we do a podcast through the NFL Alumni, which we enjoy, and I'll tell you, it's a lot more fun when the team's winning 10 and 11 in a row or whatever the case might be. It's fun to talk about it.
Well, to me, it's a doggone shame that Kenny Anderson has yet to be voted into Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it'll happen this year.
I totally agree. I don't understand it, but it's a fact that hasn't happened. I was actually at an event last night where one of the local high school's boosters were doing a fundraiser, and they brought Boomer Esiason in to speak, and so a bunch of his former teammates. We went over there, and Kenny was one that came, and Boomer was up there saying, "Can you believe this guy is not in the Hall of Fame?" And this is Boomer had a heck of a career himself, and he's like, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And Anthony, a lot of the players that are in the Hall of Fame think he should be in the Hall of Fame. So yeah, hopefully it'll happen one of these days. Hopefully get Kenny Riley in this year, which he should go in, our second Bengal. In 50-something years, 2 Bengals, and there have been some really, really good players come through here.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
It is crazy.
That's crazy.
The big markets, always the big markets.
Yep. Big market.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Anything else you guys going to ask? Last chance.
I think that's it.
Real pleasure to meet you. Real pleasure. Great picking your brain about the game, the big game coming up, and your feelings about Cincinnati, the way they got outed, which kind of a tough go.
Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it's all. You never like to lose, right? I mean, we're all competitive and winning, but there's only going to be one winner at the end. And unfortunately, the Bengals haven't found out what that feels like to be the one standing. I'll end with this. So Mark Pike, who played on 4 Buffalo teams that lost, and me, who played on 2, we're doing a post-game Super Bowl TV deal. And the host says, all right, they're in the locker room. They're all excited. Tell us, what is that locker room like? You're like, I don't know. We've never been in that one. I didn't know. Maybe one of these days the Bengals will experience that.
That's hilarious.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Jim, for being a part of a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Thank you so much, Jim.
And this thing will
Thanks for having me, guys.
this will break on Wednesday, so I'll send you the link and you can watch the whole.
All right, super. Thank
Great.
you.
And if
Thank
Kansas City goes down, you're going to pay my rent, right? I mean,
I'm telling you, go with Philadelphia. That's what I'm
Philly, that
saying.
makes sense. You got it, brother.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Jim.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
right.
That was great. And he's great guest.
Really good.
Really good
Thank you.
guest.
Really
Really
good.
good guest.
Uh,
Now I got to take some of
So, Billy, who you picking? Oh,
That's all right. Nobody,
He
see,
says,
nobody can see.
look
it.
at that. That's
Okay.
He says Philly, you know, and for a lot of good reasons. Me, I kind of like Kansas City. I think
He's a winner.
either team can win, and with 1.5, I got to go with Mahomes. I think he's been there before, and I think that, like you said, 2 weeks to prepare for Kansas City. I kind of like Kansas City.
I kind of think Kansas City's a little overrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go with the Eagles.
The Eagles.
How about Derek?
It's a hard one.
It is a tough
It's a
game.
tough one.
Yeah.
The only reason it's tough for me is because of the injury. But I was thinking about what he said regarding 2 weeks off, and he's probably getting, God knows what sort of recovery drugs for his ankle. So if he's 100%, they're hard to beat. And
Yeah.
he's a winner.
Yeah, I think if he's 100%, they still lose.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna go with KC then. Just
So I got 2 KCs and 1 Eagles.
One Eagles.
Good.
One Philadelphia.
Well, we'll find out.
And there's nobody guaranteeing anything in this game. It ain't like Namath in 69. I guarantee it. Nobody's guaranteeing it.
So
I do guarantee if you get a hold of Lamar's gamble, you're going to have one hell of a read. That I can guarantee.
it's true.
thank you so much. See you
Thanks
next
for
week.
looking in. We appreciate it.
Dun, dun, dun.
It was a good interview.
It was real good.
Next week's guest, Emmy Award-winning writer of Home Improvement and author of I Buried Paul, Bruce Ferber.
We'll see you next week.